So these are like standard, more of the standard screen corners. So if you see corners that are broken on screens that don't look like this, don't automatically assume that we'll be able to find them. With this, I probably should have shown you how I took it all apart. It's not rocket science or anything. You just start with the corner, you pull out the rubber, make sure that you get all of the spline or all of the mesh out of the channels, just because it could kind of mess it up when you try to put it back together if there's shit still in there. Right? And these ones are kind of weird because normally, like you were just trying to do, normally there are two, but this one was just dead center.
Oh, okay.
Most of the time though, it'll be two, and what you'll do when you line it up is you'll use these as your measuring, and you'll put it right on the inside part of that, and that's typically the right spacing. Unless it's a really, like if it's a really long screen, put it just a little bit further.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
But 95% of the time, right up on that is going to be money. All right. But yeah, this one's going to be dead center, and most of the time that tightens that gap so the rubber, the spline goes in. It's a little harder to get it in, but it'll do it. And you just get it as close to the spline as you can because you don't want any of that stuff. You've already kind of gotten a little bit of a, because I can't straighten this out without it bubbling one side or the other. Okay. So yeah, let's pull that out, reset. You do pull spline out, instead of like pulling it the whole way, try to just pull a few inches at a time because you're stretching when you pull that whole thing all at once. Yeah, it just tends to stretch it out a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks like it's pretty good. So yeah, if you want to put the corner in with that. So before you get it, so if there's a bubble in the top and you want to pull the spline so that it's gonna be loosened, you pull it a couple inches past where the bubble is, and then you can realign, yeah, more of it to play with and shift around. And then you just do the exact same thing that you've always done, line it up like 5-6 inches, and then one clean hard pass, do the next line up, one clean hard pass, and then and if we need to, most of that, there is still a little bubble that you see right there, but as we do this side and this side, it should tighten it up. And if it doesn't, we have ways to fix that. And so this is gonna be, we're gonna use this now. Okay. Because it's gonna be a lot easier because it's kind of more made for it. So you get right in that corner of the side you just did, and then angle it to the side you want. Get just that corner in on both sides. And that's all you need, is just like the tiniest bit started, and then the roller can do the rest. Gotcha. You want to keep going. And so this is the part that you'll use that skinny wheel to tighten this right here. Yeah, and we'll see how that plays out after we tighten. Those things kind of do tend to fix themselves a lot of the time, and if it doesn't, we have strategies.
Turning towards me on this?
So for the video, what Ivan is doing is this skinny wheel he's using to put in the channel before
to like
the spline.
Pre-place the screen in there.
And because he's angling it toward himself, that tightens the screen across.
Okay.
It's hard to tell over video, but he is turning that in this way. So hold on. Before you do that, so let me just show you something real quick. So if you do that tightening, and then you let it go, you've lost your tightening. So you want to do that, and then before you even pull out, you hold it all in place and then run it. Okay. Yeah, just like that. You see, and now, even now, you can tell that that bubble is starting to work its way out.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Look at that.
So the key is don't get discouraged early.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because the bigger the screen is, the more bubble you'll see early on. And yeah, don't let that discourage you. It's critical that it's like 5 to 6 inches that you do the angling at a time, because you don't If you try to do the whole thing, it's just not gonna hold. This tab, the easiest thing to do is to, once again, you'll run your roller, angling it toward yourself, through it, and then you hold that in place, and then, here, move your hand so that the camera can see, and then you're gonna roll right up to the tab, put it in, right, roll a couple inches after the tab, and then you're gonna push in the different sections of the tab until it's mostly in, and then one hard pass, boom, in. Just like that. And then you just finish out just the same way that you've done the rest of these sides.
Yeah, that tab was a little bit different last time.
Yeah, and you do run a chance if you just try to run straight over it like you have been the rest of this, you run a pretty strong chance of ripping the mesh if you do it that way. And then everything you've just done, nothing. So see, the stuff really does stretch because that was exactly right when we did this before, but now we've got a couple extra inches. So, all right, so then you kind of have to get on the same level to see if it's smooth, which it looks like the only bubble we really have is right here, but that's going to be pretty easily fixable. You can kind of even feel it.
Oh, there you go.
So what we'll do is, like I said before, we'll just kind of pop up this corner a little bit here. Just get this spline to release, and then pull it up and through, and then we'll pull this loose, get it to release from there because it's gotten fairly stuck in there. And then where'd that roller go? And then we'll do the exact same thing that we did on those other two sides, and we will angle this toward us, and just, that'll make that bubble disappear. Just a few inches of the angling, then roll it, a few inches until you roll it all the way until the end. You want to be careful of too. This,
see, that's where that bubble's
right
there.
Yeah. And right here, what you do want to be aware of is that this side of the mesh that you're going to cut off is starting to fold. So that's where you kind of want to use your palm. So you like angle this, right? You hold it down, and then you kind of use your palm and other hand to kind of keep that tight, because now that ripple is no longer there. But if you don't hold it down, it'll just come right back. Because the mesh basically has memory, and it's going to try to do what it's already been doing.
You want to try and get it set right the first time.
Yeah, and most of the time, like after experience, this part right here that we're doing won't be necessary most of the time. But if it's also a good step to take just in case you're like, I think that looks pretty good, but I'd like to just really make sure it's tight. This is not a bad step to do, to just throw in at the end. And then boom, all the way to the end. So that's good. So now it looks like all we've got is a bubble right here, because it looks like the rest of this looks pretty good except for right at this end. So just like I said before, try to get a little further on each side of the bubble. Pull that out of the channel so that it's loose. And then this is the one part that's different, is that if you're in the middle of your whole line, you don't want to just run it straight like you normally do. You want to, every inch or so, give one press all the way through what you're doing. Because if you just tried to run it straight through, you'd end up with a bubble of spline at the end of this because it stretches. So this makes it so that everything just kind of stays in place. So you push in every inch or so, and then once that's done, now I can take it and just run along this whole channel, smoothing everything out, and then boom. That's definitely acceptable. Sometimes, I mean, there will be a tiny thing, but like it's practically perfect. One of the final steps is to cut all the way around, which I usually just start up here at this corner. And you just kind of angle into the channel and get as close to the spline as you can, but make sure that your angling is good, because if you angle too far down, you're cutting the mesh that you don't want cut. So you just, if you have a nice fresh razor, then that should cut just fine. Nice and smooth. And then I like to just give it a little pull, make sure that I haven't left anything behind. The corners are a little bit tough, but you just kind of work as close to them as you can. And then sometimes there's just like this, there's gonna be just like one singular strand holding it on. So you just pull that back, give it another sweep. The corners are, it's always just important in every step of this entire process that the corners always work slightly differently than the whole rest of the rail. So it's just important to pay attention to that. Definitely don't rush this, because if you cut your mesh, you just have to restart. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So the last thing that you want to do with this, the framework, this metal framework should have kept everything in place. But just as a test, so if you have warped the screen at all and given it that hourglass look, you will see
a little
gap. So like if you hold it on the flat part of this table and you don't see a gap, you did a great job. Nice. So this screen is officially done. Good to go. Let me see.